Okay, so what's it like to be talking about the Milk Cup after all these years?
Yeah, I know it seems like an eternity ago now for me. We're talking over 20 years now, 23, 24 years. So, I have great memories of it. Very fortunate to have two winners' medals at two different age groups. So it's a great tournament. For me, one of the most prestigious in the world for sort of youth football. A little bit surprised, with obviously I won it with Man United, but a little bit surprised about their non-participation this year because I know how highly Alex Ferguson regarded this tournament. So it is surprising that they're not here, but you still look at sort of the clubs that are here. It's so well thought of and so well run.
You genuinely thought it was fantastic.
Oh, without a doubt. You look how long they'd been coming across, back from when I was there. I think the first time I played in it for Man United was maybe about 1990. So there's 25 years that they'd been coming to it. So for 25 years in a row, Alex Ferguson had been the manager there, so he obviously seen what a great tournament it was. And the year that we won it, we had Brian Kidd and Nobby Stiles coaching us, over with us. So they obviously knew the tournament inside out, and as I say, Alex Ferguson was a big fan of it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's alright. What do you remember about that Milk Cup with Man United?
Yeah, I mean it's a very long week for the players, because it's very difficult playing sort of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If you're that lucky to get to the final. I remember on a personal basis, I think the first two games I was pretty average, and then I think got to the quarter-finals. We played Liverpool, Robbie Fowler in the Liverpool team, and happened to score a hat-trick, and things just went great for me from then on. We won the semis on penalties and then beat Hearts in the final. I think it was about 10,000 at the Coleraine Showground. So it was a great thrill for us being young lads. We're sort of 16 years of age, and here we are playing in front of 10,000. Obviously, the sort of link that Northern Ireland has with Man United, you're obviously going to get a lot of people watching. So it was great for us that we could come over. I'd only been at Man United a week, and I was back for the tournament. So it was great for me that my family were down watching, and it turned out to be a great tournament for me.
You've mentioned some of the players that played. Were you aware at the time just how special that team was and some of the players were?
I don't think at that time. We sort of knew each other for a few years, going back and forward during school holidays, but we'd just gone over as first year apprentices, and as 16-year-olds there's still a long way to go in the game. There's a lot of developing to do, but certainly it was a great start for us as a youth team to go there and win the tournament. We obviously progressed, in the following year to win the Youth Cup as well, which is such a massive tournament. I think it had been quite a while since Man United had won it, so we were the first in a long time. So I think we started maybe realising then that we maybe had a good team going. The first team were very complimentary about us. We played the first team one time in a friendly at the training ground. We beat them 4-2. So we knew that we might have half a chance.
And who were the standout players then in that team?
Well, you look at sort of the players that there was: Beckham and Nicky Butt, Gary Neville, Rob Savage. Scholes actually when we won the Milk Cup, he couldn't get in the team that year. He was a little bit smaller than the rest of us, but it's amazing when you sort of think back and Paul Scholes couldn't get in the team, and then you look to see what he achieved in his career. Certainly for me, out of those crop of players, he would have been the best of the lot of us. But it was one of those one-off sort of teams where you get so many coming through at one time. And you look at Ryan Giggs was just a year older and played in the Youth Cup with us as well. So it's incredible names there.
16-year-old. What's it like to go over there in terms of living with digs? Is it homesickness?
Yeah, it is quite difficult. when you sort of look at it, you're an hour away on the plane, but you know it's the other side of the water. But you know, I lived in digs, and everyone was in the same boat as me. I shared a room with Rob Savage, but he was an hour down the road by car. You know, so his family could come up and visit. You know, so he was fortunate that way. But you know, some other lads in digs with me, one was from Glasgow. There was a couple of other Welsh lads as well. So you're sort of all in the same boat, and you keep each other going. You know, trying to remain positive about being away from home and that. And it's something that I always looked at, and I knew I would, you know, get a little bit of homesickness. But I knew that then that was a sacrifice that I had to make if I wanted to be a professional footballer. You know, it was, I suppose, the lads in Manchester, the likes we had Ben Thornley and Scholes and Nicky Bott, Gary Neville, you know, all lived at home, so it was no big change for them. Whereas we're moving, you know, coming out of school, moving over to a new country, you know, so it is difficult. But
was it always something? Maybe this is a difficult question to answer, but was it always something you enjoyed, or at times was it more of a job?
No, I mean, you enjoyed it, but the very difficult part is when you're out of the team and you're not playing, and you train every day, and you get the weekend and you're not playing, and that's when it becomes very, very difficult. Where you it does feel like a job. I mean, you're trying your hardest to try and get in the team, but you know, sometimes it's just not going for you, and that's the difficult part when you're not playing. But you know, I wouldn't change anything for the world, you know, throughout it all, because I played under great managers, I played at great clubs, and I represented my country 86 times, so I'm very fortunate in that fact.
If you're going to look at the young lads, what would you say to them now?
Well, I mean, it's just very important to you know, it is easy advice, because it's important to listen to what you're being told. You know, there's nothing worse than you know, having a sort of manager who's running you, but nobody likes running, but they're doing it for what's good for you, and it's important that you sort of listen to them. You know, you maybe swear at them under your breath or something like that, but it's important to listen to the advice that you're given. It's important to sort of remain level-headed, and I think you just got to believe in your own ability. You know, you're across the water at clubs because you're a good player, and it's important that you sort of keep that thing in your head.
Is there times when perhaps when you're young where you thought, or young lads can think, actually, that coach is wrong, and they decide, I'm going to think for myself and I'm going to do maybe something different?
Yeah, I mean, there probably is players who sort of think like that, but those are probably the players that don't make it. You know, you sort of think about the club I was at, Man United, and you look at you know, we had a youth team manager, Carson, who you were frightened to death of, but he was absolutely incredible, you know, and he's coaching the youth team at Man United because he's a good coach and he knows how to bring players through, and that's exactly what he done. So, you know, these guys are at big clubs and coaching at big clubs because they know the game, and Alex Ferguson, you know, trusted the youth team manager to bring these players through, and you know, he was able to do that. You know, football is such a great game, and it's just important that you play at any level. You know, there is going to be ones who do make it. There's ones that don't. I think that's just life, but it's important. You know, you can carve out a career in the Irish League here, or you know, it's just important that you continue playing. You know, you show enough at this sort of level. You know, there's too many players who at this sort of level and they don't sort of make it across in England, and they give football up. You know, and it's sort of a waste then. So it's important just to continue playing at any level.